can I say? Oh, what else can take? Cause I done this when I should have done that. Try to be smart, but I'm just so bad. Have you ever needed what you never ever had? I just can't get enough. Just when it looks like I'm gonna get close, my lips mess up and my
Listening to some.
I just can't wait till you're fucking everybody, baby, cause I
You want the door open? Hanging out here with Poncho. Oh, okay. Some old music I used to dance to in India. Oh, I miss dancing. I miss India. His name is Raghav. This one should have done that. Just can't get enough. Oh, I fell in love with this guy when I started traveling to India in the early 2000s, back in my whippersnapper days. So, Pancho, chill out. Don't knock my crystals off the windshield. Windshield. You know what I mean. The ledge. Hey! Anyway, it's a beautiful Saturday. Had a little bit of a rough time sleeping, so I am going to... that music was so good. Had a little rough time sleeping, so Pancho and I stayed in... Hold on. Pancho and I stayed in, slept in a little, cleansed the house a little, cleansed my room. I'm going to try and venture out, maybe head out to the library in a little. But I thought, you know what? I keep putting on this music in the background. And I can't focus. I just want to dance. So I'm going to have to put back my... I'm going to have to put back my soothing music so I can focus. Otherwise, I'm back in the club, back in Mumbai dancing. Anyway. There, that's a little more zen. Anyway, I hope that if anyone is watching this finds you in good health and happy. I went on this little tangent with this music I heard from a friend of mine. Someone that was in my dreams last night. So usually when I dream about people, it's like my intuition kind of thing, checking in on them. So I checked in on him. He said he's doing good. But I had sent him a message earlier in the month when Mandavi won New York's election, New York mayor election. And I was super excited because in his victory music, he played Doom Machale, Doom. And that was my jam back in the day. I mean, my jam when it was my second trip to India, but every time I go to the club, they would play that song. And so I sent it to my friend, my friend from India, and from Mumbai actually, and sent him that song. But I didn't hear back from him. And I guess today when I sent him another message, because I was like, hey, just wanted to check in, make sure you're good. He, I guess, saw this message and he's like, oh my God, I love that song. And he said that I had introduced him to some other Indian music that he really liked too. So I've been on this music kick. So, yes, I have been enjoying my Indian music today. It's been a lot of fun. But anyway, let me get back to my Zen music so I can focus Focus, focus, focus. Let's see. What am I listening to? Healing music. Okay. So yes, I had a better evening. Well, no, it was a rough evening sleeping, but I was able to sleep in and catch a little bit of, at least be able to sleep in this morning and chill out with Poncho before I head out. I got to clean up a little. I'm glad I heard from my friend. I listened to some good music. I'm wearing my thrift shop dress that I got last week. So I'm gonna maybe head back there and check out, see what goods they got today. Take myself out on a lunch date, do some work, some of my own personal work. The mood's been a little heavy for me the last few days, I'll be honest with you. Hey. And so I want to make sure that I'm doing my shadow work, that I'm doing my healing work. I know the holidays are coming up, and those are sometimes hard, not just for me, but for a lot of people. And I'm not quite sure. Hold on, I need to close my door again. I mean my window, because now it's getting chilly. Sorry, buddy. Cleansing. This is one of my new crystals I got last week at my little antique shop. Well, it's an antique shop, but there's a little section that sells like witchy stuff, I guess, or they call it crystals and sage and all that stuff. So I'll probably stop by there too this afternoon. But last week was a physically exhausting week at work, and last night, honestly, I didn't even record. I was a little perturbed. All the men bailed on us, and it ended up just being me and the older lady that reminds me of my mom, whom I'm really actually starting to love. Like, she's a sweet lady. She was driving me crazy in the beginning, and sometimes she still drives me crazy. But we're actually getting along a lot better. And at the end of the day, these heifers are the ones that took care of shit, because every guy bailed on us. And dinner last night, we served everyone, including staff, and had to serve desserts, and it was just us two. And I'm not gonna lie, it kind of kicked my ass. I mean, it was about 100 people all coming in at the same time, and 2 people having to serve them and make sure that everything was taken care of was a little exhausting. So we were exhausted, but made it home, and I was too tired to do any recording, to do any of this. But last night I kept waking up from my elbows all the way to my fingertips. They're just throbbing, like they hurt so bad. And it's been bothering me for, the last few weeks, but last night, like, I couldn't even sleep. And I think I sleep like a T-Rex anyway. When I go to bed, I'm like, so that doesn't help. And ended up having to, I don't like taking medication, but I took ibuprofen, like 4 ibuprofen last night. That's how bad they were hurting. And finally it subsided. Poncho was a big fat bed hog last night. He was a super snuggler though. He just had to be like right on me. And as annoying as that was, it was actually really sweet. So I'm really grateful that I have my pup with me. And yeah, so I survived. Why the heck isn't this turning off? There we go. So today is a beautiful day. I'm off the next 2 days. I'm going to be working. I don't know how much I'm going to be working on the Earth Angel project. I'll be honest with you. I know I say that a lot. I'll be honest with you. Not like I'm never not honest on these, especially on my recordings. But the topics covered are pretty heavy. So I think I might just focus, try not to focus too much. Hopefully the tarot will be gentle on me and I can just do some self work. And I thought today I would, before I head out, do a little bit of Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth, which has been awesome to read. Last I read was We Inherit Dysfunction, which was perfect with what's going on in the world. I thought it was kind of funny that my friend responded to the Doom Machala today, and it was like, was it yesterday that Zoad was in the Oval Office and Trump was just little Pepe Le Pew eyes falling, you know, practically slobbering over him. Trump knows definitely good light, and he knows winners. And Zohad definitely did not kiss his ass, and he even called him a fascist to his face. It's okay, honey, you can call me fascist. It's hilarious. But yeah, funny that came up, and I was listening to that music today. Anyway, so I think the last that I read was, oh, okay, the ego. We had talked about our inherited dysfunction. We talked about fear, greed, and the desire for power are not the dysfunction that we are speaking of, but are themselves created by the dysfunction, which is deep-seated collective delusion that lies within the mind of each human being. All right, next one is the arising new consciousness. This goes perfect with the Earth Angel novella. Okay, universe, thank you. Most ancient religions and spiritual traditions share the common insight that our normal state of mind is marred by fundamental defect. However, out of this insight into the nature of human condition, we may call it the bad news, arises a second insight. The good news of the possibility of a radical transformation of human consciousness. In Hindu teachings, and sometimes in Buddhism also, the transformation is called enlightenment. In the teachings of Jesus, it is salvation, and in Buddhism, it is the end of suffering. Liberation and awakening are the terms used to describe this transformation. The greatest achievement of humanity is not its works of art, science, or technology, but the recognition of its own dysfunction, its own madness. In the distant past, this recognition already came to a few individuals. A man called Gautama Siddhartha, who lived 2,600 years ago in India. Siddhartha, that's the one Kuan Yin, the tarot reader, always talks about. So he lived 2,600 years ago in India. I was talking about dancing to Indian music today. Was perhaps the first who saw it with absolute clarity. Later, the title Buddha was conferred upon him. Buddha means the awakened one. At about the same time, another of humanity's early awakened teachers emerged in China. His name was Lao Tzu. He left a record of his teachings in the form of one of the most profound spiritual books ever written, the Tao Te Ching. To recognize one's own insanity, of course, is a rising of sanity. Let me say that again. Excuse me. To recognize one's own insanity, of course, the arising of sanity, the beginning of healing and transcendence. Okay, simmer down there, music. So much more positive message I needed. Whew. A new dimension of consciousness has begun to emerge on the planet, a first tentative flowering. Did I read this one already? Those rare individuals then spoke to their contemporaries. They spoke of sin, of suffering, of delusion. They said, look how you lived. See what you're doing, the suffering you create. They then pointed out to the possibility of awakening from the collective nightmare of normal human experience. They showed the way. No, Pancho, I'll let you out in just a little. The world was not yet ready for them, and yet they were a vital and necessary part of human awakening. Inevitably, they were the most misunderstood by their contemporaries as well as by subsequent generations. Their teachings, although simple and powerful, became distorted and misinterpreted, in some cases even as they were recorded in writings by their disciples. Over the centuries, many things were added that had nothing to do with the original teachings, but were reflective of a fundamental misunderstanding. Some of the teachers were ridiculed, reviled, or killed. Others came to be worshipped as gods. Come here, Bubba. Come here. Come here, Pancho. He's looking at me like, okay. Come on. I'm not picking you up, dude. That's why my arms hurt, Cletus. You're too heavy. You're too heavy. Come on. Oh my goodness. All right. Teachings that pointed the way beyond the dysfunction of the human mind, the way out of the collective insanity, were distorted and became themselves part of the insanity. And so, religions. Yes, ma'am. Oh, thank you, ma'am. I will. I appreciate you. All right. This is my roomie. I got to do some laundry before I leave. Just wait a second, buddy. Just wait a second. You want to come up here? Okay. Teachings that pointed the way beyond the dysfunction of the human mind, the way out of the collective insanity, were distorted and became themselves part of the insanity. And so religions, to a large extent, became divisive rather than unifying forces. Instead of bringing about an ending of violence and hatred through the realization of fundamental oneness of all life, they brought about more violence and hatred, more divisions between people as well as between different religions, and even within the same religion. Pancho, get over here. Hang on 1 second. Come here. Let me get my dog. Can you just chill for a second? Oh. Pancho has made an appearance, my handsome boy. All right, come sit with me. Come sit with me. Come on. Come on. Oh, chihuahuas. We've always got to have a... Yes, handsome boy. Yes, everyone can see your big mug. Oh my goodness, on my memories yesterday, baby Pancho pictures came up. He's such a cute little puppy. All right, can you sit so I can read? All right. They became ideologies, belief systems people could identify with, and so use them to enhance their false sense to self. Through them, they could make themselves right and others wrong, and thus define their identity through their enemies, the others, the non-believers or the wrong believers. We're the only true church on earth, whatever. Who not infrequently saw themselves justified in killing. There you see how many religions in the name of their religion. You know, of course we judge Middle Eastern for that, but it happens here at home too. Look at the evangelical right wing, how fucking crazy and opposite they are of Jesus's teachings. Anyway, man made God in his own image. The eternal, the infinite, and the unnameable was reduced to a mental idol that you had to believe in and worship as my God or our God. And yet, in spite of all the insane deeds perpetrated in the name of religion, the truth to which they point still shines at their core. It still shines, however, dimly. through layers upon layers of distortion and misinterpretation. It is unlikely, however, that you will be able to perceive it there unless you have at least already had glimpses of that truth within yourself. Throughout history, there have been rare individuals who have experienced a shift in consciousness and so realize within themselves that towards which all religions point, to describe that non-conceptual truth. They then use the conceptual framework of their own religions. Through some of those men and women, schools and movements developed within all major religions that represent not only a rediscovery, but in some cases, an intensification of the light of the original teachings. This is how Gnosticism and mysticism came into existence in early and medieval Christianity, Sufism, and in Islamic religion. Haddism and Kabbalah in Judaism, Advaita Vedanta in Hinduism, I know I'm mispronouncing these, I apologize, Zen and Dzogchen in Buddhism, I'm butchering these words. Most of these schools were iconoclastic. Jeez. They did away with layers upon layers of deadening conceptualizations and mental belief structures, and for this reason, most of them were viewed with suspicion and often hostility by the established religious hierarchies. Unlike mainstream religion, their teachings emphasize realization and inner transformation. It is through these esoteric schools or movements that the major religions regain the transformative power of the original teachings. Although in most cases, only a small majority of people had access to them. Their numbers were never large enough to have any significant impact on the deep collective unconsciousness of the majority. Over time, some of those schools themselves became too rigid, formalized, or conceptualized to remain effective. Okay, how much time have I been on? All right, we're going to do spirituality and religion, and then I'm going to end there, because you know I get feisty thinking about, I am not religious, I am definitely spiritual. I was religious at one point. God forgives me. What is the role of the established religions in the arising of the new consciousness? Many people are already aware of the difference between spirituality and religion. They realize that having a belief system, a set of thoughts that you regard as the absolute truth, it does not make you spiritual, no matter what the nature of those beliefs is. In fact, the more you make your thoughts, beliefs, into your identity, the more cut off you are from this spiritual dimension within yourself. Many religious people are stuck at that level. They equate truth with thought. And as they are completely identified with thought, their mind, they claim to be in sole possession of the truth in an unconscious attempt to protect their identity. They don't realize the limitations of thought. Unless you believe or you think exactly as they do, you are wrong in their eyes. And in the not too distant past, they would have felt justified in killing you for that. And some still do, even now. The new spirituality, the transformation of consciousness, is arising to a large extent outside of the structures of the existing institutionalized religions, narcissistic religions. They were always pockets of spirituality, even in mid-dominated religions, although the institutionalized hierarchies felt threatened by them and often tried to suppress them. A large-scale opening of spirituality outside of the religious structures is an entirely new development. In the past, this would have been inconceivable, especially in the West, the most mind-dominated of all cultures. Ain't that the frickin' truth? Where the Christian church had a virtual franchise on spirituality. You couldn't just stand up and give a spiritual talk or publish a spiritual book unless you were sanctioned by the church. Oh my gosh, this is so true. And if you were not, they would quickly silence you. But now, even with certain churches and religions, there are signs of change. It is heartwarming, and one is grateful for even the slightest signs of openness, such as Pope John Paul II visiting a mosque as well as a synagogue. Partly as a result of the spiritual teachings that have arisen outside of the established religions, but also due to the influx of ancient Eastern wisdom teachings, a growing number of followers of traditional religions are able to let go of identification with form, dogma, and rigid belief systems and discover the original depth that was hidden within their own spiritual traditions at the same time as they discovered the depth within themselves. It's been my spiritual journey. They realize how spiritual you are has nothing to do with what you believe, but everything to do with your state of consciousness. This, in turn, determines how you act in the world and interact with others. Those unable to look beyond the form become even more deeply entrenched in their beliefs, that is to say, in their mind. We are witnessing not only an unprecedented influx of unconsciousness at this time, but also an entrenchment and intensification of the ego. Ain't that the frickin' truth? Some religious institutions will be open to the new consciousness. Others, they will harden their doctrinal positions and become part of all those other man-made structures through which the collective ego will defend itself and fight back. Some churches, sects, cults, or even religious movements are basically collective egoic entities. Wow. As rigidly identified with their mental positions as the followers of any political ideology that is close to any alternative interpretation of reality. Damn, he's hitting the nail on the head. But the ego is destined to dissolve. See, even Eckhart Tolle says it. And all of its ossified structures, whether they be religious or other institutions, corporations, or governments, will disintegrate from within, no matter how deeply entrenched they appear to be. Oh, I needed to read this. The most rigid structures, the most impervious to change, will collapse first. Tick-tock, motherfuckers! This has already happened in the case of Soviet communism. How deeply entrenched, how solid and monolithic it appeared, and yet within a few years it disintegrated from within. No one foresaw this. All were taken by surprise. There are many more such surprises in store for us. The urgency of transformation. When faced with radical crisis, when the old ways of being in the world and interacting with each other and with the realm of nature doesn't work anymore, when survival is threatened by seemingly insurmountable problems, an individual life form or species will either die or become extinct or rise above the limitations of its condition through an evolutionary leap. It is believed that the life forms on this planet first evolved in the sea. When there were no animals yet to be found on land, the sea was already teeming with life. Then at some point, one of the creatures must have started to venture onto dry land, and it would perhaps crawl into a few inches at first, then exhausted by the enormous gravitational pull of the planet, it would return to water, where gravity is almost non-existent and where it could live with much greater ease. And then it tried again and again and again, and much later would adapt to life on land, growing feet instead of fins, developing lungs instead of gills. It seemed unlikely that a species would venture into such an alien environment undergo an evolutionary transformation unless it was compelled to do so by some crisis situation. There may have been a large sea area that got cut off from the main ocean where the water gradually receded over thousands of years, forcing fish to leave their habitat and evolve. Responding to a radical crisis that threatens our very survival, this is humanity's challenge now. The dysfunction of the egoic mind, recognizing already more than 2,500 years ago by the ancient wisdom teachers and now magnified through science and technology, is for the first time threatening the survival of the planet. Until very recently, the transformation of human consciousness, also pointed to by the ancient teachers, was no more than a possibility, realized by a few rare individuals here and there, irrespective of cultural or religious backgrounds. A widespread flowering of human consciousness did not happen because it was not yet imperative. A significant portion of the Earth's population will soon recognize, if they hadn't already done so, that humanity is now faced with its stark choice: evolve or die. A still relatively small but rapidly growing percentage of humanity is already experiencing within themselves the breakup of the egoic mind pattern and the emergence of a new dimension of consciousness. What is arising now is not a new belief system, a new religion, spiritual ideology, or mythology. We are coming to the end not only of mythologies, but also of ideologies and belief systems. The change goes deeper than the content of your mind, deeper than your thoughts. In fact, at the heart of the new consciousness lies the transcendence of thought, the newfound ability of rising above that thought, of realizing a dimension within yourself that is infinitely more vast than thought. You then no longer can derive your identity, your sense of who you are, from the incessant stream of thinking that in the old consciousness you take to be yourself. What a liberation to realize that the voice in my head is not who I am. Well, who am I then? The one who sees that. The awareness that is prior to thought, the space in which the thought or the emotion or sense perception happens. Ego is no more than this: identification with form, which primarily means thought forms. If evil has any reality, and it has a relative, not an absolute reality, this is also its definition: complete identification with form, physical forms, thought forms, emotional forms. This results in a total unawareness of my connectedness with the whole, my intrinsic oneness with every other, as well as with Source. This forgetfulness is original sin, suffering, delusion. When this delusion of utter separateness underlies and governs whatever I think, say, and do, what kind of world do I create? To find the answer to this, observe how humans relate to each other. Read a history book or watch the news on television tonight. If the structures of human mind remain unchanged, we will always end up recreating fundamentally the same world, the same evils, the same dysfunction. A new heaven and a new earth. The inspiration for the title of this book came from a Bible prophecy that seemed more applicable now than any other time in human history. It occurs in both the Old and the New Testament and speaks of the collapse of the existing world order and the arise of a new heaven and a new earth. We need to understand here that heaven is not a location, but refers to the inner realm of consciousness. This is the esoteric meaning of the word, and this is also the meaning in the teachings of Jesus. Earth, on the other hand, is the outer manifestation in form, which is always reflection of the inner. Collective human consciousness and life on our planet are intrinsically connected. A new heaven is an emergence of a transformed state of human consciousness, and a new earth is its reflection in the physical realm. Oh, I love this. Since human life and human consciousness are intrinsically one with the life of the planet, as the old consciousness dissolves, there are bound to be synchronistic, geographic, and climatic natural upheavals in many parts of the planet, some of which we are already witnessing now. Isn't that the truth? All right. Thank you, universe. That was beautiful. It's a good way to start the day. The next chapter is chapter 2, and it's ego, the current state of humanity. I don't want to dig into that right now. I'm having a good spiritual buzz, but when I get back, that'll be the next covering. It's a really good book. I found that last week in my thrift store finds, and it's the universe sending me messages. Okay, I'm gonna pull one more random. There's no place like home. I just opened it up, page 143. Or should we do 144? Well, let's just do the first one. There's no place like home. Dorothy's journey in The Wizard of Oz. Dorothy's journey in The Wizard of Oz. How perfect. Wicked opened today, part 2. Dorothy's journey in The Wizard of Oz is one we all take through life. We search north, south, east, and west, only to discover that the very thing we're looking for was inside us all along. Same goes for searching for our callings. The Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Lion all feel they're lacking one thing that would make them feel whole and purposeful. Scarecrow thinks he doesn't have a brain. Tin Man struggles over his lack of heart, and the Lion believes he doesn't have courage. However, the Scarecrow is actually the smartest of them all. The Tin Man oozes compassion, and the Lion has the most courageous heart. They believe that they must ask the all-powerful wizard how they can possess these qualities, seeking permission, approval, and validation from an external force. As the journey unfolds, it is the exact quality in each of them that gets them to their destination. The wizard then reveals these traits and their true callings. Scarecrow becomes the wise ruler of the Emerald City. Tin Man, a compassionate leader, and Lion, a courageous king. Often the exact thing we feel we lack is the one thing we already have within us. It's our gift, but our fears are manning the gate. Work your light. What do you think you lack? Is that true? I lack nothing. All right, I'm going to wrap that up here. My little bunch, look at this handsome boy. Is he not the most handsome boy ever? Well, if anyone is listening or following any part of this journey, I hope that you are learning right along with me, and I wish you peace and happiness, and thank you for being a part of my spiritual journey, and I love you, and I will be back later.